All right, Tim, we good? Good evening, everybody. For the record, Thursday, October 26th, 2023, it's 5:15 p.m. The City Council's out of executive session. I've called the meeting to order. As always, we start with the pledge to our flag, and Councilmember Cuevas, would you lead us?
Certainly. Please rise and remove your hats, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Cuevas.
You're welcome.
All 7 members of the council are here tonight, so nice to see everybody. We always start our meetings with citizen comment. So tonight, we do not have any public hearing items, so if you're here to talk about anything that's on tonight's agenda or something that's just for the good of the order, we'd ask that you come up. We'd give you your name and address, give you 3 or 4 minutes. Manuel, we have you on for a little bit later on a presentation. So anybody wish to address the city council, come on up. Yes, sir, come on up.
Good afternoon, late afternoon, I guess.
Early evening.
Thank you for this opportunity. A couple of meetings ago, there was the multi-unit tax exemption issue that was a little bit contentious, although there was a unanimous decision to avoid it, I guess. Item I on your agenda, on the 3rd page,
Yep.
has a similar multifamily tax exemption item. To improve my ability to understand, I'd like to request that you discuss the financial details. For instance, what this means in terms of total dollars per year that the city would not be receiving due to the tax exemption, and the extent to which the tax exemption benefits Wenatchee residents by holding rents to reasonable amounts. It just seems as though it would make it much more understandable. I'm not suggesting that you not do it. I'm just suggesting that if the dollar figures were attached to it, I could understand it better, and I suspect others could also.
Yeah, it's an extremely complicated process. I'll do my best to explain it during the meeting to try to explain sort of how it works, but.
Thank you. That's my request.
I'll try my best to make it simple, but I'm telling you, it's a very complicated process.
I know it is. I know it is, which is why I'm hoping that there is a relatively understandable set of numbers that you're.
And we went through it either just before or just after that, where the county assessor was here and she was explaining to us the property tax implications and how that all sort of worked. I don't know if you were here for that part of the meeting.
I believe I missed one meeting.
Okay.
So
that one was,
you got me there.
That one was, could explain what we call the tax shift, right? And sort of how that works. So I'll do my best to explain that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a good evening, everyone.
Yes, come on up.
Muy buenas tardes, señor mayor, a todos ustedes, señores y señoras concejales de la ciudad. Mi nombre es Teresa Cepeda Sosa y yo vivo en la 420 Walker Avenue. Aquí la señorita Laura me va a ayudar a interpretar. Por favor.
I was writing notes. Hi, everyone. My name is Teresa Cepeda, and Tammy wrote down the address.
420 Walker Avenue.
Gracias.
Bueno, como ustedes saben, o muchos de ustedes saben, yo vivo enfrente del parque Meadow Park. Y yo esta tarde he venido porque también, como ustedes saben, alrededor del parque viven 4,200 personas. Es un lugar multifamiliar y somos demasiadas personas y qué bueno que usan el parque.
So, as many of you know, I live across from Howe Park. It's a very large community, about 4,000 people that live around that area as well.
Y esta tarde he venido a pedirles a ustedes de la manera más atenta que por favor nos colaboren abriendo los baños de ese parque por más tiempo. Queremos que las personas que asisten al parque puedan hacer sus necesidades en el baño.
I'm asking if the city could please open the bathrooms for a longer period, so that the people that are visiting the park can use them.
Si es posible, los domingos también pueden abrir los baños. Sería genial sábado y domingo, el periodo desde las 7 de la mañana hasta las 6, 7 de la noche. O hasta la hora que se cierra el parque. Eso sería genial.
The request would be to open them on Saturday, Sunday from 7 a.m. to 6 to 7 p.m. in the evening, or sort of dusk to dawn according to the park hours.
Y les voy a decir por qué. Las razones por las cuales se necesita abrirse es porque personas juegan fútbol durante la tarde. Muchos jóvenes, siempre está lleno. Inclusive en la pandemia estuvo lleno de jóvenes.
Lots of people use the park, especially the youth, for soccer, and so it's always full.
También las personas que van a hacer ejercicio, muchas mujeres hacen zumba y cardio. Dos diferentes grupos de personas.
There's also several groups who have, I'm sorry, that might be my mic if that's, there's also several people there who take classes, exercise classes during the weekends.
Durante la semana hacen ejercicio, va mucha gente, y durante el fin de semana también las personas de una iglesia que están ahí van al parque.
The park is used weekdays and weekends by local youth groups, church groups as well.
Entonces todas estas personas que usan el parque, algunas necesitan ir a hacer sus necesidades básicas, que es ir al baño. Y me ha tocado ser testiga de cómo algunas personas no pueden sostener y ahí se hacen en sus pantalones.
So unfortunately, she's seen when people are there and visiting the park and are not able to access the facilities, and therefore there's accidents that have happened.
Entonces yo estoy esta tarde pidiéndoles que por favor nos echen la mano y que nos ayuden a abrir el baño un periodo de tiempo más largo, por favor.
So she says, again, just reiterating her request to be able to have the bathroom open during those times and for longer periods of time.
Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias.
So David, do you want to come up and tell us about parks bathrooms and sort of where we're at? And I know there's damage and we're trying our best to do all of that. So just sort of a quick update.
Yeah, so a quick update. Currently, we are winterizing restrooms in all the parks. Other than Lincoln, Rotary, those we have heaters in for as long as they don't get stolen. That's one of the challenges that we face in the restrooms. For example, Lincoln Park restrooms, we've closed them this week because we're having daily issues with people urinating on the walls, in the fixtures, on the floors, taking all the toilet paper out, throwing it around the room. We're finding needles, burnt foil with drug residue, melted pens, things like that. And we face that in all the restrooms when they're open. Currently, we have staff on during the week, Monday through Thursday. We don't have our temp staff on anymore. That season has kind of gone by. They would open them and close them on weekends. We will have MedHal open. There is an event on Sunday, so we're opening it up. We're bringing our staff in on overtime to open the restrooms, and then our security detail will lock them in the evening.
And they'll make sure there's nobody in there in the evening.
Right, so they don't spend the night in there. That's the other thing. As soon as we open them, they turn into residences
Right.
in the parks as well. So we have those issues as well. And they're vandalized constantly. As soon as we open them, they're vandalized. Everything from breaking the sinks to stealing the ceiling heaters middle of the day. They'll go in and unbolt that and walk away with them. And you name it, they do it.
Okay.
So
So we're trying.
we're trying, yeah, trying to find ways that we can do it. Typically, too, is on a park system-wise, typically the little neighborhood parks, so like Medhow, Pennsylvania, those parks, they're designed to serve the immediate neighborhood. So there should be within walking distance of most of the people that come to visit those. The larger parks like Rotary, like Lincoln, Pioneer to that extent, are more of a community-based park. So you have people that are driving to those areas beyond kind of a convenient walk as well. The restrooms at where the waiting pools are, or excuse me, the parks where the waiting pools are, we typically have those open during the waiting pool program because that's a health department requirement, that we have restrooms for that water feature. So you'll see that open during those program hours.
And if we wanted to open up Met House Park, make sure it was open every Friday from sun up to sundown, we would have to have some people come in on overtime to do that, and Saturday and Sunday as well?
Correct.
Because currently we wouldn't have normal staff for that.
Right, right. Yeah, either that or we would have to hire additional temp staff to do that.
Okay. And in terms of having them freeze without the heaters, then we got issues with some of those?
Yeah, so Washington doesn't have heaters in it at all. When we redid Lincoln, we incorporated heaters in that.
Okay.
We retrofitted Rotary to include ceiling heaters.
Okay.
Centennial has ceiling heaters as well. Hale also has heaters in those restrooms
Okay.
to keep the pipes from freezing, basically. It's not, you're not going to walk into a sauna or anything, but it's just to keep it above freezing.
Any questions for David? I think, Laura, if you would mind just reiterating what this conversation is to Mrs. Bendito at some point in time, just to, so she understands what we're sort of dealing with. Okay.
David, do we still have the park monitoring program where the public can sign up and be park monitors? And do we have a lot of people signed up to be volunteers for that?
Not much. Our best, we call him Mayor Ken. Ken is the mayor of Met House Park. He lives right next door, and he's been great. Anytime there's an issue or anything, he gives us a call. He's got everybody's number and all of that. He's probably the most active, but not many officially, no.
But maybe if we promoted that a little bit and got more community activity, that would allow us to maybe look at some more options if we could minimize the damage that's being done.
Every bit helps, for sure.
And yet the parks that, like Met House and the others that have the restroom closures, you're talking about additional staff to handle all of those, right?
Yeah, if we were to open them up, we would have to have.
I mean, if we
staff
do
to-
one, we're gonna do them all.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the ones that we can in the wintertime, yeah. There's
I
some
think-
that don't have water, so.
And I think if it wasn't for the damage, right, and urinating on the walls and doing all the stuff that goes on, I think we would do our best to try to figure out a way to get them open when the sun comes up and maybe try to do it at least through Saturdays, right? I don't have a problem putting resources to that. It's we can't open it unless we clean everything and hose it out and get it ready, and then we turn around and leave and it gets damaged again. And it's like, it's this circle of to the point where sometimes we just say, we're just not gonna open them, right? It's just too much for us to try to keep track of. So, it's frustrating, because I think we would try if we felt like, we weren't just gonna be spinning our wheels the entire time.
Agreed.
All right, thanks, David. Thank you, Mrs. Bendito. Who else would like to address the city council on anything? Yes, sir, come on up. We got 3 people coming up. We're gonna have to take a line here. Let's go with one, and then you two will flip a coin over it. Yes, sir.
Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Armando Bendito y yo vivo en el 420 de la Walker y estoy aquí para reforzar la petición de la señora Teresa. Yo soy vecino del parque y ahí hay varias actividades y a veces yo estando en el porche, pues hay gente que va y me pide permiso para pasar al baño porque los baños están cerrados. Y si nos ponemos a pensar un poquito, creo que beneficiaría un poco más a la comunidad o a la gente que anda alrededor del parque si los baños están abiertos. Habría menos incidentes ahí.
Hi, everyone. My name is Armando Bendito. He lives across the park as well at Met House Park and is here to support Teresa's request. He says that sometimes he's at his house and at his porch and that people will come over and request to use his bathroom, and he tries to help them out when he can, but he thinks it would be beneficial to have the bathrooms open longer so that there's less incidents.
Por ejemplo, yo he ido a Saro Rock y los baños están abiertos y así se evita que la gente pues haga sus necesidades en los lugares inadecuados. Y yo pienso que esta petición pues ayudaría bastante a la comunidad.
he noted that he visits Saddle Rock a lot, and those bathrooms seem to be open and available for the public, and so they would like the same at the Met Howe Park.
Pues sin más que agregar, pues, muchísimas gracias y espero que pongan un oído a esta petición. Gracias.
Yeah, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, you guys flip coins back there?
Hi, everybody. James McLaughlin again. Welcome back, Keith. Good job there doing your civic duty while you're on holidays in Italy. First of all, Teresa Bendito is the unsung hero of this city. She goes out of her way every day to help people. Last week, Teresa and I actually helped a family of 10 that were cold, that were struggling, and without any recognition, she got up there and we both got it together and we helped them. These are the people that need to be helped. These citizens are the people that pay everybody's wages that are sitting here today. As you can see, more people are starting to come to these meetings, and these meetings are becoming more popular. They're becoming more popular because people are wondering what jobs are being done here. When it comes to these solutions, everyone says it's complicated. There's nothing complicated. When you put all these people, which are mostly drug users, I was watching a lady trying to sell copper in the waste management transfer station today. When you house them in safe parks and you provide them with propane for free and they're cooking meth in these safe parks, and then all the people in this disadvantaged area are trying to get out of this circle, this wheel that they've been spinning on, it's completely disenfranchising the whole neighborhood. That's starting to spread. The reason why Western toilets are open is because there's no homeless people up there, but they're all in South Wenatchee. And 2 weeks ago, I asked, did anyone know how many homeless people were in the valley? Nobody answered me. I would like to ask, does anybody have an idea how many homeless people are here?
Yeah, we do counts, yeah.
Okay, so what's the count today?
We don't do a count every day, do it a couple
Okay.
times a year.
There's approximately 2 a day coming into the city. So I suggest, because if there's 44 police officers and there's over 400 homeless people, that's a 10-to-1 ratio. So that's a ratio that the police cannot expect to meet a target, especially, I asked for an independent inquiry. I did a public records request. This is what I get back. This is the transparency from the city. Everything is always blanked out because no one likes to be transparent. I want that to change. That needs to change because that's a public request from me, about me, to the city, and it's all redacted. Public disclosures. These all went out in the mail. I don't know who paid for these, but Frank and Mike, both of you are on this. You know the rules when you have to send these out. You have to disclose who actually paid for this. There's a complaint gone in about that. I got a call today from residents in Palisades. My signs are scattered around the dirt roads up in the Palisades. Now I hope that no member of City Council or their family or any city staff members live in the Palisades, because that seems quite random why all my signs are up there. The independent inquiry I asked for wasn't carried out. It was closed within a week. The chief sent it off to the sheriff. The sheriff gave it to a corporal in Kashmir. I've left 3 phone calls with that corporal, and the corporal has 3,000 miles and not enough officers to patrol, and my signs aren't important. And I tried to explain to him, it's not so much the signs, it's the interference I feel that happened, that took place, that hasn't been investigated properly. This all comes back to my point.
Did you get the letter from the city attorney?
I got that like 4 days after we,
Yeah.
so.
Just confirming you got it, thank you.
Yeah, but it wasn't an independent inquiry. I don't want to go on, and like I said, it's not all bad news, but like people have to step up and realize if you're sitting in these chairs, like there's nothing complicated about documenting the people that are here, stopping them, giving the police more powers and saying, if you're coming here availing of our services, we have to get some documentation. If we don't have any, we can do fingerprints. We can then run that through the system. If they have felons or if there's warrants out for their arrest, instantly they will be taken away and they'll be shipped back to wherever they came from. That's probably why they're here. Second of all, it'll actually send a message out to the homeless people and the non-profits that are actually bringing them over here so they can get more funding. And everyone will know, because if you notice the homeless people that are loitering on the streets, every one of them has a hungry, please help me, but they're on a smartphone. So, you know, the message will get out pretty quickly in the homeless community that we're
So let's
not.
wrap it up. We're getting close to our 3 minutes.
Yeah, well, Frank, sorry, a lot to say, but there's a lot of things that we can do. The bathrooms should stay open. A $4 million Lincoln Park project, and we have no CCTV anywhere in the city, and everyone's frustrated because we have no answers. There's plenty of answers. The last thing I'd like to say is, Mr. Poyer, I believe your daughter was saying that she wants to be an engineer. Is that correct for the city?
This is your turn to talk.
Your turn.
Okay, yeah. Well, I also believe your other daughter is married to a maintenance worker. And I was just curious, like, I seen a hole in your signs. I hope he didn't have my signs, because I'm not going to let that go. So that's all I have to say. I hope everyone takes it on board, because I'll be here every 2 weeks. I'm going to start by helping the family every week and doing it, and hopefully everybody can get behind me. And I expect everybody to do the same. So thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
Yes, sir.
Hi there, can you guys hear me first?
Yeah. Name, please?
So my name is, you want first and last name or
Yes,
just
first and last name and address. Yeah.
My name is Chris Suvi and I live on 102 North Mission Street. And on that street is a 1 hour to 2 hour parking sign. For the businesses, I get it. But I also live on that street. And it's gotten to the point to where I've gone to about 4 or 5 little contested hearings with the judge over parking tickets. And it's like, okay, this isn't going anywhere because, well, I keep getting them. So what can we do?
So we have a parking, is it 2 hour parking in your neighborhood?
It is 2 hour parking.
Okay, so I need to know sort of where it's at on the street, right? And then we gotta look and see, we have a parking code. I think we adopted 2 or 3 hour parking. We haven't had a parking enforcement officer for 2 years. We finally hired one because we've got lots of complaints for people parking way too long. So our parking enforcement officer is out doing his job. So we need to figure out where you're at. If there's not street parking for you to park and walk to your, we can look at it, but the council has to figure out where the boundaries are. And, that's what our parking rules are. So I need to know where it's at, so get some information to staff, so I know where it's at, where are you parking. We'll have to look, see why we have the parking, and then we'll have to decide, do we change the parking just for you or others? Or do you have to park on the street and walk a couple blocks? We'll have to look and see what that is.
I mean, that's the thing, is there's about 3 other apartment complexes in that same street.
Right. Yeah, so make sure that we have your address. We'll get on the Google Maps. We'll look and see what the parking stuff are, and make sure they have your phone number, and we'll try to go back to you and just look and see if there's something we can do to help with that situation.
Sweet.
Yeah, not promising you anything, but at least we'll look at it. And make sure we get your phone number. Thanks, Chris. Anybody else wish to address the city council? Seeing no other takers, we do have sort of 1.5 presentations, but I'm gonna do our consent items first, so I'm sorry. Let's do our consent items, which includes approval of today's agenda, vouchers, and a couple other little ordinances at the bottom, so I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion to approve the agenda, vouchers, and minutes from previous meetings. This motion includes for the council to authorize the city administrator to sign the interagency data sharing agreement between the city of Wenatchee and the Office of the Washington State Department of Revenue. A motion for the city council to approve resolution number 2023-26, confirming the appointment of Lorna Klemansky to the city's Civil Service Commission to fill the remaining term of position 1, which expires March 31, 2024.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Kulas, second by Councilmember Huffaker to adopt this evening's consent items, which includes the agenda, the vouchers, and our minutes from the previous meetings. For the council to authorize the city administrator to sign the interagency data sharing agreement between the city of Wenatchee and the Office of the Washington State Department of Revenue. And to adopt resolution 2023-26 confirming the appointment of Lorna Klemansky to the city's Civil Service Commission to fill the remaining term of position 1, which expires March 31st, 2024. Any discussion? Lorna, are you here? Hi, Lorna. Thank you for agreeing to serve.
My pleasure, thank you.
Assuming they vote yes, which, yeah, could be a big debate here. Yeah. Any comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Presentations. We got 1.5 presentations tonight. One is not on your agenda, but I'm going to add one. But first, we're going to hear from Manuel Navarro, Columbia Valley Community Health. Manuel, nice to see you tonight.
Hi. Thank you, Mayor Kuntz and members of the Wenatchee City Council. Thanks for the opportunity to introduce myself and share a little bit about the organization that I represent. As was mentioned, my name is Manuel Navarro. I am the CEO at Columbia Valley Community Health. Although I've been in the role for a little under 2 years, I've been at the organization for 12, having spent time prior to my time here at Yakima Valley Farm Workers Clinic, which is another large community health center in the state of Washington. Just thought I'd share a little bit about, as I'm going to try and move this one over here. Okay.
Are we expecting something on our screens?
Yeah.
Oh, but we don't see it on our screen. See if Tim is going to make that happen.
Just a little bit about the health center movement and the history. The health center movement came about in the 1960s with the agricultural migrant center movements on the California coast, and then, of course, the urban center movements in Boston and Mississippi. And in 1960s, Lyndon B. Johnson formalized the health center movement by developing Section 330 of the Bureau of Primary Care, which officially identified community health centers and started to provide funding and access grants for those organizations to grow. And of course, the mission being providing affordable, high-quality, comprehensive primary care to medically underserved populations, regardless of their insurance status or ability to pay for service. Today, there are over 1,300 community health centers throughout the United States, 27 of which are located in our state of Washington. 1 in 11 people are served by community health centers, and we serve a vast array of different special populations. 1 in 8 children are served by a community health center, 1 in 7 racial minorities, 1 in 5 Medicaid beneficiaries, 1 in 5 uninsured person, and then, of course, 1 in 3 individuals in poverty are served by a community health center. One of the things that we recently worked on was a vision for our organization. We came up with what I share with you today here. CVCH provides the best access to whole person care for underserved individuals in North Central Washington. And I highlighted 3 words there that I just want to kind of formalize, get a little deeper into. The term access, really looking at not only affordable care, but also timely care and convenient care. And those are 2 areas that healthcare in general are really struggling with in terms of accessibility for having enough healthcare providers and or being able to maintain hours that are convenient to the population. The other word I want to share and really point out is that whole person care, really looking at not just physical and mental, which I think CVCH does a good job with in our delivery of primary medical care, dental, and behavioral health, but then also looking to focus on social care, those social determinants of health that are really preventing individuals from achieving optimal health. Things like housing, as I just heard discussed, housing and transportation, location where they live. So I think that's going to be a challenge for our organization to really look at how do we encompass not only those physical and mental components of healthcare, but how do we help people with those social components as well, and developing our programs to address them. And then lastly, underserved. As I mentioned earlier, that's one of the core missions that we have as a community health center, and looking at not just underserved in terms of, but looking at why there are barriers to that, of course, financial and transportation, but other barriers such as knowledge, language, ethnicity, health coverage, and then, of course, access, the lack of health services that are needed in the community. So our mission, you've probably seen, but it is partnering to achieve optimal health and wellness with compassion and respect for all. And that's not just partnering with patients, but also partnering with other service providers, other municipalities, and other organizations, and really looking at how do we improve this ability for our whole community to achieve that optimal health and wellness. So today, as many of you know, we've been serving the Wenatchee and Chelan Douglas counties for over 50 years. We celebrated our 50th anniversary last year, really looking at how do we continue to break down those barriers to the behavioral, mental, and dental care for our communities. Always want to point out that one of the key requirements of a community health center is that we are board-driven. We're not-for-profit, board-driven organization. And a particular requirement is that at minimum, 51% of our board members have to be users of our service. So in essence, they're patients. And we're very proud to know that over 51% of our board, up to 70% of our board members are patients of our organization, users of our service. And this really leads to the fact that they're available and they know their community and help guide what we need for our community and the people that they live with and work with each and every day. I think a big question that always comes up, and I think a misnomer, is that, oh, you're a government clinic, so you get all of your revenue through grants, and that's not true at all. I think one of the things that I can be proud of, and that our community can be proud of, is that CVCH is a very sustainable, well-run business. We do have access to grants. Our 330B initial grant that we get every year helps to cover the uncompensated care that we deliver, and we do have access to other grants that help us continue to develop innovative ways to deliver care. But for the most part, the revenue that we generate delivering those services really is what drives our organization, and we do it really well. Now, we're not a free clinic. We charge for everything we do. We just make it affordable and are able to continue to reinvest that revenue back into the organization. Obviously, our biggest expense, as other organizations, is our salaries and benefits. So hiring and maintaining high-quality staff to help deliver those services is what we really focus on. And then, of course, reinvesting into the organization so that we can continue to increase our delivery of services, like our mobile unit that we purchased several years ago and are using for some of the homeless accounts, and like our expansion in East Wenatchee, and some of the other areas that we continue to grow in. And then just more than just delivering some of the basic services, just here you can see some of the other services that we deliver. Our wellness programs, our partnerships with the school and Girls on the Run, funding that and helping elementary school age girls develop good self-esteem, good healthy habits, and then challenging them to a 5K every year. It's an immensely popular program. We opened our Level 1 Intensive Outpatient Substance Use Disorder Treatment Center several years ago, about 3-4 years ago. And we know that, as we mentioned today, that that's a huge need in our community, and we continue to look at ways to expand that service, not just, but then also expand it to youth and making sure that we have bilingual substance use disorder professionals in that program, and we continue to grow there out on our Miller Street address. Pharmacy, making accessible pharmaceuticals for underinsured and uninsured individuals, and our 340B pharmacies in all of our sites, and then our various other programs that are listed there. Just to wrap things up, just to kind of put some hard numbers to the things that we're able to do, this is what our report was for 2022. We served almost 38,000 unique individuals in the service area. And I sent you the wrong one. About 60% of those individuals live in the Wenatchee zip code. 36% pediatric, 53 adult, 11 geriatric. The majority of those individuals do access our medical care, but we have 30 in dental, 10 in behavioral, and that is one of the fastest growing service lines that we have. as evident too, we realize that, which is why we're doubling the amount of space that we're going to have for our behavioral health services with the new facility that we're building right next to our new clinic that will be specifically designated for behavioral health services.
And that new clinic's in East Wenatchee?
Yes, yeah. And then it's no surprise then that 84% of our patients self-identify as incomes below 200% of the federal poverty level. And just to give a sense of where that lies, that's $60,000 for a family of four. And I think the term poverty tends to get a bad connotation and a misnomer that, oh, these are the homeless people, these are the people that aren't working because they don't want to work. The reality is the majority of patients that we serve who are below that 200% poverty level are hardworking families and community members that are really trying to make sure that they have a healthy life for their family members and themselves. And we just work really hard to make it affordable for them to at least access that primary care that we feel is vital for community vitality. We still serve a large number of uninsured patients. 16% of our patients identify as uninsured, and that's for various reasons. Many of them don't qualify for insurance, but there are still a large number of people who just choose not to sign up for an insurance package that they may be eligible for. We work with individuals on a routine basis to make sure, and I help them identify what they might be eligible for, and definitely encourage them to sign up for the insurance. Our organization does offer sliding fee, so we don't turn anybody away for inability to pay, and we offer the sliding fee, but that's just for our organization. Oftentimes when we refer them out for specialty care and or diagnostics, if they're uninsured, those create barriers that we can't help them with unless they do the insurance. As a designated migrant health center, we still see a large number of agricultural workers. So these are people who identify as agricultural workers. And again, it's not just the individuals who are out there harvesting the fruit, but it's defined as anybody who helps cultivate the land, process the land, and then transport the agricultural products to the packing. So irrigation people identify as agricultural workers. The truck drivers identify as agricultural workers, and even the orchardists and their families identify as agricultural workers. So large portion of our community for sure. And then last, we delivered a little over $48 million of care last year. And so that's an investment of about $1,200 in each individual that we serve. And we hope to continue to do that. We know there's a big need for healthcare, and we look forward to continuing to partner with the city of Wenatchee in making sure that we're helping take care of our community. So thank you. Able to answer any questions that you might have?
I just want to comment, thank you for taking the mobile van out to the two safe parks, the times that you do that once a month, and making sure that our most vulnerable people are getting access.
Right.
They would not come to your clinic, but when you go to them, it's
Right.
very meaningful and helpful, so thank you for that. And I don't really have any questions for Manuel. Anybody have any questions? No. Thanks for
Thank
being
you very
here.
much.
Good luck. Thank you. And then quickly, we're going to have Dave Erickson and I think Chief Crown come up, and they executed a cleanup along the Hill Park waterfront earlier this week, and they've got some pictures to show and sort of show you what we were able to do after going through Danielle's 17-step program or whatever we had to go through to get us to a point. So
Yeah, it definitely was a team effort. Glenn was involved, service providers, so I'm going to defer to them for all the hard questions. I'll just show you the pictures. So Hale Park, just as a reminder, down on the river, 720 South Worthen Street, developed in 3 phases. The first 2 are complete, state grant funded. So phase 1 was the restroom parking area and the dog park. Second phase was in 2020, included the skate park and the play area. And then the third phase, which hasn't been done yet, is the restoration of the shoreline area. And you can kind of see the original plan there. That was going to be restored, the habitat. The area that we're looking at, and you'll see in the pictures, is from here, which is kind of the parking lot area, all the way down south of the George Seller Bridge. The next slide will show area just right around here, south of the dog park, some work that happened this year. So far this year, we've taken out 31 dump trailer loads of debris from that one little area south of the off-leash area. So everything from needles to trash and other random items. But then what we're talking about tonight really is the current cleanup activity that's been underway. So since May, law enforcement and service providers have been doing outreach to the folks that were down along the river, taking up residency down there, doing contacts, referring them to services. We also, around the same time, maybe in the summertime, ended up having a shoreline violation in that area for illegal grading activity that's happening in unstable slopes, the fill material that's there, as well as issues with the riparian and aquatic habitat down there. This cleanup, as I mentioned, involved a lot of people. So community development, us, police department, mayor's office, Danielle, city attorney, as well as the human service providers around. So there have been a lot of people who've been involved in this since early summer. Jumping ahead, the lower picture is some habitat preservation signs that we posted along the trail. We posted 10 signs down there at pretty much all the access points, early October. And then people started removing their personal belongings not too long after that. So here's some that you can see off to the side. So then last week, the police department went down and they posted the 72-hour notice, which is required. Notice to vacate, and service providers continued to meet with the people down there to try to get them into shelters, into places other than along the river. We hired a contractor who handles hazardous waste. We looked at multiple different types of waste that were down there. So there's e-waste, which is like your cell phone batteries and laptop batteries, stuff like that. Medical waste, which is human feces, needles, that type of thing. And then just trash. So we had to separate those items out and deal with those separately. There's also vegetation and invasive species issues, invasive plant species issues, which is a separate issue that we're hoping to deal with through the budget process, develop a plan to address that, as well as to restabilize the shoreline. If we were able to get that funding, then we would start that work next year. So a few pictures of some of the items that were brought out over the last 3 or 4 days. This is just south of the off-leash area, so lots of bike parts, no whole bikes, but building materials, you name it. And you'll see in these next few pictures some of the items that were pulled out. We had a crew of 8 down there for the work, and they had to carry everything from the bottom of the slope by the river all the way up to the top of the slope. Some of that slope is almost vertical to get it up and out. Lots of mattresses. There was a sleeper sofa down there, lots of chairs, tables. I mentioned the bike parts, fences, buckets of human waste, building materials. We only found 4 needles, which is unusual because we found more needles in the Lincoln Park bathroom on Monday than we did in this cleanup. So far, over 2 tons of metal, scrap metal, was brought out and taken to the recyclers, and we're waiting for the final count on the actual pounds of trash. But I know they filled 3 of those large construction dumpsters full. And then the contractors also pulled everything they could reach out of the river, but there's a lot more out there that was tossed into the river that they couldn't reach from shore. So that'd be a future cleanup. A few before and after pictures to give you an idea of kind of what it looked like. I took tried to get them in the same spot, same pose, so a couple of them are just slightly off, but just to give you an idea of some of the material. This one actually kind of highlights an excavation from earlier. This was earlier this summer that was all dug out, and this is from up above looking down, so it's kind of hard to tell, but materials there. This area was a cave that was dug underneath, kind of by the dog park. There's several of those spots where it's a public health and safety issue, potentially with people falling through or getting buried, like what happened a year or 2 ago north of town by the Wenatchee River. A couple more areas. This was down by the Black Bridge, more or less, and one further down, kind of south of the off-leash area. And one final one. This is just south of the off-leash area too. So went through all that debris, and with that, we try to answer questions you might have.
3 full days down there?
3 full days. Well, just in this cleanup, but yeah, weeks of prep and everything.
Just
to get ready
actually
for it.
3 days
Yeah.
to clean it up. Any questions for, I just wanted you guys to know that they were able to get down there and we met all the legal requirements to be able to go down and do that. And so it was full team effort, Chief and his team and Dave and his team and Glenn and his team and the city attorney's office. We were finally able to get down in there and get something done. Chief, you want to add something?
Yeah, just a few quick comments. I mean, we're giving you a time lapse, you know, one of those that shows you the speed, sped up video. Honestly, the entire time that this has been going on, our officers have been down there on a regular basis. We've made a number of arrests down there, actionable issues that it can actually be, result in criminal arrests. Those have been occurring this entire time. Impediments that have occurred in this state with actually on a national basis with the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, the Boise decision that was rendered a couple of years back, plus some of our state statutes, it makes it entirely difficult to deal with some of these issues. I think we're in a better platform working with our city attorney and developing solid protocols for dealing with it. Now comes the most important piece of this. Now that the signs are developed, it's properly posted, is to make sure that individuals aren't utilizing that area again in this manner, making sure that officers are making continuous sweeps, making sure that resources are provided, and we've got our outreach teams doing their job to make sure that they're going down there and offering those services, making sure that those low barrier shelter beds are being utilized where they can be. So that's kind of the landscape that we're forced to deal with, and our officers are doing their level best to make sure that they're doing
Chief, question
that.
for you, because you and I talk about this moderately regularly, and I don't know if the folks at home or in the audience understand. How many times a day are we taking people to the jail and the jail says we're not taking them?
That happens on a regular basis.
Okay, so we go out and make an arrest for drug possession, felony, whatever, we take them to jail and the jail says we're not taking them.
Well, honestly, we're detaining them,
Yeah.
and honestly making that phone call on a daily basis to ask, can we book an individual?
Right.
And these are our folks that are doing open use of drugs and asking whether or not we can book them. The jail has limited jail space for observation purposes for anybody that's using fentanyl or has fentanyl on board, meaning they've ingested drugs. And so that becomes highly difficult. Jail bed space becomes an issue. And right now, we are put on booking restrictions on a regular basis with the jail. So that booking restrictions means that there are mandatory arrests such as DUIs, domestic violence arrests, violent felons, that we're able to book regardless. The rest of the violations, we're actually having to make phone calls to see if we can book somebody into jail. It becomes really difficult because it's those lower violations that really have a tendency to grow. You have crimes that are committed, and quite frankly, you end up having criminals believing that they can scoff the law.
Yeah.
And so that problem continues to grow.
Thanks, I just wanted the council to hear that.
Sure.
And some of the folks in the audience and at home that, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, any questions for Chief or for Dave?
Dave, do you know when we might be looking at phase 3?
Yeah, so we have the budget request in the preliminary budget to do the engineering to stabilize the slope, do the planting plans to address the invasive species and put in something more appropriate, as well as the SEPTED principle, which is crime prevention through environmental design. So we'll try to make it so it's less likely to reoccur. So that's in the preliminary budget. That would occur in the spring, assuming budget is approved. Have the engineering, and then we come back in the fall to either start the vegetation portion of the project or a budget request for the following year, depending on how the engineering comes out.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Chief.
Yep.
Thanks, Glenn. I don't know if Glenn's here. There you are. Yeah. All right. I think that takes care of our presentation. So we have a number of action items. So let's go ahead and crank out a couple. And then when you guys are ready for a little break, let me know. But the first is regarding our ADA transition plan. So who's presenting that this evening? Oh, it's Charlotte.
Hello. I'm here today with Al King.
Hi, Al. How are you?
Our consultant from King Technologies for our ADA transition plan. And so Al is going to give the presentation and I will provide backup as
Make sure you
necessary.
talk into the microphone so all of our friends at home watching can hear you.
Do you want me to say that again?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Good evening. Fortunately, it was a nice drive across the mountains. I don't know who was responsible, but the roads were all nice and dry.
excellent.
So I appreciate that. Transition plan is a requirement of the Americans with Disabilities Act, dating clear back to 1990. 28 CFR Section 35150 requires public entities with 50 or more total employees to have a transition plan. That includes, obviously, the city of Wenatchee. It requires a self-evaluation is the terminology they use. It's an inventory. In this case, it's only of your sidewalk ramps and signal push buttons. The plan's not only a legal requirement of the U.S. Department of Justice Access Board under the ADA, it has two primary purposes. First, it provides the citizens of Wenatchee with confidence that the city is serious about serving the needs of all of its citizens. Second, given that lawsuits have too often been the driving force to the outcomes and not necessarily to the benefit of the city or its citizens, it provides a degree of protection of liability by working to assure compliance with the federal requirements. It's also worth noting that the state of Washington has similar requirements. The task assigned to King Technologies was to develop that plan with appropriate elements to meet those requirements, and that's what we've tried to accomplish. Come on. There are several items that are required that are not a part of the plan, but are noted in the ADA compliance requirements to implement the plan. And those include a named ADA coordinator, a public notice about the ADA requirements, a grievance procedure and appeal process, and facility standards. Now, the good news is you had all of those. All we have done is to review those and update those. There were really fairly minor revisions to be made. Again, they're not a specific part, but they are critical to implementation of the plan. The plan itself includes, as I mentioned, the sidewalk ramps and push buttons inventory. A sidewalk inventory is planned in the future, not a specific time frame. Again, the requirement at this time is only for the push buttons and ramps, and those are included. The longer term intent is a full sidewalk inventory. Some of that has been done previously in order to provide a fully accessible pedestrian system. In part, the plan provides not only a methodology, but a set of realistic targets for the immediate need of the ramps and push buttons, understanding that it is costly and can't be accomplished immediately. There just isn't enough budget in any city that I'm aware of in the country to do that. In addition, it provides transparency for the citizens to have confidence that the city is in fact addressing the need. It's important to understand this is a long-term commitment to maintain the system as well. All federal aid projects, when you accept them, include a clause that's rarely talked about that requires you to maintain those facilities that are built with federal dollars in perpetuity. And I'm well aware that City of Wenatchee has received a lot of federal grants over the years. So you've made that commitment whether you realize it or not. When we talk about barrier removal methods, what we're really talking about is we're going to rebuild those ramps. That's the methodology that is included, and install push buttons where they are not currently in place. I think most of your system is pretty much up to snuff on that. The meat of the plan itself is the inventory, which is complete with a commitment to keep it current, and a priority system to tackle the system needs and the upgrades in a timely manner. The inventory includes measurements on each and every ramp. There's an extensive amount of data that's on those, and the good news is keeping it forward is relatively simple. If something gets destroyed, obviously when it's rebuilt, it's built to specification, measured and confirmed when it's built. And so it's just a matter of kind of keeping track of it from going forward. So less staff requirement than the initial effort. The plan at that point then turns into a priority system, and the priority system is laid out in Appendix D and Appendix E, gives you the details. It's fairly comprehensive. What we've tried to do is have a simplified system that's understandable by anybody that looks at the priority system. 3 levels, fully compliant, meets all of the standards, non-compliant but works. Okay, it's usable. And then, of course, those that are non-compliant. An example of one that is functional but non-compliant would be a ramp that has the pressed concrete ridges in it rather than what I call the yellow bubble mat that you're so familiar with. They work fine, but they don't have that visual context that the current standards require. To keep it, again, as simple as possible, this is always my goal in these kinds of projects, the priority system is based on those measurements. We developed an array of measurements that are acceptable for each of those measurements, and simply place that in the city's GIS system and run it against the inventory, and it gives you then a ranking from needs it now to it can wait until later, or we don't need to do anything with it. The one thing that is a little challenging that the city staff will be addressing in I think the next traffic count is how do you count pedestrians? Nobody in the country has to date done a complete pedestrian count. It's a very difficult thing to accomplish. So what we did was, and commonly used throughout the country, is to use traffic as a substitute, recognizing that not always is traffic going to give you a direct correlation with pedestrians, but it's pretty good. Wenatchee Avenue has a lot of traffic, also has a lot of pedestrian traffic. The hospital area has a lot of traffic, also has a lot of pedestrian traffic, and in that case has a fair amount of disabled pedestrian traffic as well. So that's the kind of target that we're using to develop that. The city staff is, as I say, planning to do some pedestrian counts later that will be able to be replaced to give you a more specific measurement of that. Along with that, the city's annual program, speaking of schedule and budgets, deals with obviously any new construction or reconstruction. Those are all built to current standards. You don't have to be concerned about that. That's just part of the cost of those projects. A commitment is made in the plan to build an additional 4 ramps wherever the priorities suggest to try to bring the whole system up in a little more rapid manner. Recognizing that it's 20 plus years to bring everything up. And one of the things that's important to understand for everyone is that changing conditions and changing regulations will probably keep you always looking ahead to how are we going to get this done. And it's just kind of the nature of transportation facilities. The plan provides a record of opportunity, which is nothing more than documentation of the public engagement. Multiple announcements were made through multiple media sources, including the city's social media accounts and the website. And it's always difficult to engage the public and get commentary on something that's relatively complex. Really isn't terribly complex, but you dig down into the details and you glaze over pretty quickly, unless you're working with it every day. Now, having said that, a good thing, Wenatchee got a fair amount of comment back, not a lot, and most cities, frankly, get zero. So at least.
You can tell by the audience we have, we get a
something.
fair amount of comment on lots of things.
Pardon?
You can tell by the audience we have, we get a fair amount of comment about lots of things.
Yes, indeed, that's a good thing. Last, where are we? We're about at the end. I will note that due to circumstances beyond the city's or my control, this has been a much longer project than we ever anticipated. Good news is we are very close to being done. City code has been reviewed and recommendations made. Website, same. ADA notices were updated. The coordinator position description was updated. An online grievance form was completed, so that'll be available, or is available on the website, so that, with modern media, most people are now using web systems to do all kinds of things. The plan is essentially complete. The record of opportunity will be completed after your actions. And really all that's remaining is your adoption of the plan and finalize the language at that point. With that, entertain any questions that you may have.
Council members, any questions for Al?
I'm kind of curious, I mean, ADA rules change so frequently. I was shocked that we were only looking at updating 4 ramps a year. That seems, that doesn't seem like it's going to keep up with the changing of ADA requirements almost on a yearly basis.
It may not, and it is not a maximum, it is a minimum commitment. As things change, you may well wish to say, okay, we're going to do 10 or 20 or whatever your budget allows. Part of the issue, as always, is your primary transportation dollars come out of your main budget, and you don't have a lot of other sources, so there's always a trade-off there, but you're exactly on target. As those regulations change, the requirements will change.
So it is just a minimum, not a,
Right, and if I might add, we do improve lots and lots of ramps every year as part of our capital projects, but.
why we're already paving and things like that.
Right, so we do way more than 4 ramps a year, but these 4 ramps are showing that we are specifically interested in improving ADA compliance in the city, and so we've put them as a separate line item to show that, yes, we are making an effort in addition to all the other ramps that we improve every year as a product of our capital projects.
And they're actually a special line item in our budget now, I think.
Yes, yes, so, and that's a result of this plan, is just showing, hey, we are committed to this.
I could add on the budget, so this 2024 budget, it'll be before you in November. This will be the first year that we've called out the funding for those minimum of 4 ramps, and that will continue from here forward. So this, in conjunction with this plan that Mr. King has finished up, we are now, to meet our requirements, we're calling that out. But as Charlotte mentioned, we've been doing hundreds of ramps each year with our preservation program, so.
Okay. And then the other part of my question is, I know we did a sidewalk survey 3-4 years ago. Is there any way of taking that and making it part of this plan? I mean, sidewalks are supposed to be included. Is that something that can be incorporated into this plan?
Yes, eventually that is the intent, is that we will contain that, but this was taken in kind of a bite-sized approach where it's like, okay, first we're gonna go for the curb ramps and the ped push buttons, and then once we get a handle on that, feel a little confident, then we'll, move on to the next. But we already are taking care of quite a lot. I know Aaron Kelly, our maintenance folks, have been working a lot on tripping hazards and all that stuff. So that work is happening. It's just not really included in the plan right now.
Yeah, it seemed like it would be a good place for it to be all encapsulated.
And it will eventually, yes, that is the plan.
Thank you.
I think a couple of things that are important to note. Excuse me. First, most of you are probably aware, but when an overlay is done on a city street, that is considered a change that requires any upgrades to ramps. So when Rob and Charlotte talk about the numbers, those are all included, and that ends up being quite a lot of upgrades. I think the other thing is, as far as the sidewalk surveys go, just in the last year, we've seen come out a couple of pretty sophisticated and relatively inexpensive methodologies to do that. So I would anticipate that over the next year, 2, 3, staff is going to be looking at those and being able to get that system really up to snuff.
All right, any other questions for Mr. King or for Charlotte? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I'll motion for the city council to adopt the ADA transition plan.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Hornby, second by Councilmember Poyer to, Cuevas? Somebody over here. Yeah, we'll go with Cuevas. Sorry, Tammy. You guys' voices sound the same sometimes. So motion to adopt the ADA transition plan as presented. Any question or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for making the trip over today.
Thank you. It's been a
Thank you,
pleasure
Charlotte.
working for the city.
Thanks, Don. Welcome back. Our old Public Works Director in the back helping with this. All right, the next up is item B, which is an emergency services contract between the city of Wenatchee and Chelan County. City Administrator Gloria.
Good afternoon, City Council. This is the mayor mentioned, the item before you is 2024 agreement for emergency services between the City of Wenatchee and Chelan County Department of Emergency Management. So I bring these to you on a yearly basis. This has been an ongoing contract that we've had since 2016. So Chelan County Emergency Management helps us move forward with our city's comprehensive emergency management plan, and is also designated the emergency management organization. We work really closely with Stan Smoke and his team, and they come to Public Safety Committee to present on that. They help us operate our continuity of operations plan, the different facilities that would be necessary if something were to happen, and so they really do provide a great service to us. The contract is the same as in years past. The only difference is the change in the per capita costs from $3.04 last year to a proposed $3.08 in 2024, for a total of $110,418. That is currently included in the proposed budget for 2024. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
And every year we do this, I do ask the chief if he's interested in bringing it back into the city's hands, and he keeps telling me no. So as long as the chief doesn't want to do it, we have a requirement to do it, that we just contract with the county, so. Not any questions? I entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I make a motion for the city council to approve the contract between Chelan County Department of Emergency Management and the city of Wenatchee for 2024 emergency services in the amount of $110,418 and authorize the mayor's signature.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Huffaker, a second by Councilmember Rojan Astatian, to approve the contract between Chelan County Department of Emergency Management and the City of Wenatchee for 2024 emergency services in the amount of $110,418 and authorize the mayor's signature. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Laura. Brad, lodging tax accounting changes.
Your Honor, I'm going to recuse myself on this item.
All right, so duly noted.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Brad Posenjak, Finance Director. I have a couple accounting ordinances to bring to you this evening. The first one is related to lodging tax. I think it was in the mid-'70s that the city adopted lodging tax, and then in the '90s updated some of the city code, and it hasn't been updated since then. And what was adopted in the city code back then is outdated at this point in time, and we still try to account for it the same way that it was written in the city code, which we have a 6% lodging tax, and there's the way our city code has it, there's a 4% and a 2% that make that 6%. And of the 4%, 20% has to go to something, and 40% has to go to something else. And of the 2%, 80% has to go to somewhere else. And so you'll see this fun little flow chart in your packet that is just, it's been cumbersome. One for accounting, it's confusing. It took me a couple of years to figure out what exactly was going on with that when I came to the city, and trying to explain it with the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee just adds more confusion to it. So we're hoping to update. We could probably change the accounting process and the cash flow that we use and is adopted in the budget. We could probably change that without addressing the city code, but it will just make everything much cleaner if we update the city code to reflect what is actually happening, which is that the LTAC committee, they do what they are legally required to do. They make the recommendations on how lodging tax funds are spent, and then the city council has the authority to approve how much of it is spent on those purposes. And that will continue as it has been done.
Any questions for Mr. Posenjack? I know the Finance Committee saw this last week and 2 weeks ago, I think.
2 weeks
Wasn't today, yeah. And approved it. So any questions? If not, I entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion for the city council to adopt ordinance number 2023-16, amending section 5.99.050 of the Wenatchee City Code relating to the lodging tax administration.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Kulas, second by Councilmember Hornby, to adopt ordinance 2023-16, amending section 5.99.050 of the Wenatchee City Code relating to the lodging tax administration. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries with one abstention. And update city funds list for budget and accounting purposes. Mr. Posenjack.
Yes, thank you. The next one is an ordinance that I bring. I think I've brought it each year for the last several years at around budget time. Each year we will change our list of funds. We have a list of funds in the city code just because it helps define what each fund is supposed to be used for, which that in turn helps with our accounting standards and how we report in our financial statements. From time to time, different funds come and go because some are set up for a specific capital project. The capital project gets completed, we don't need that fund anymore. Other things are, we try to streamline things like that lodging tax, change a cash flow or change a flow of funds that was just approved. Now we only need 2 funds instead of 3 funds to track that. Other things, we're going to be implementing a new accounting system this coming year. And so ahead of that, we are trying to clean up some outdated numbering systems that we no longer use. We are incorporating a couple funds into the general fund because for reporting purposes, we report them in the general fund for our annual financial statements. So we're just trying to clean things up with this. And then at the very end, there is some cleaning up to the to our petty cash accounts. Some of these have either been closed or adjusted for a while now, and we're just bringing this in to reflect how we actually have our petty cash account set up. Any
These
questions?
are exciting changes. Don't all get off your seat. Yeah, keep going too much.
They're really just to help out the accountants, so I appreciate your time.
All right, any questions for Brad? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion for City Council to adopt ordinance number 2023-15, amending and reinstating chapter 1.20 of the City Code relating to the funds of the city.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Hornby, second by Councilmember Ogen Estetian, to adopt ordinance number 2023-15, amending and restating chapter 1.20 of the Wenatchee City Code relating to the funds of the city. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
City Engineer, Mr. Lewing, you've got 2 transactions. Remember, I got the plural in there today, right? So
That's
there's
right.
more than one.
Yes, I have a couple of agreements here for consideration of council and mayor. This should be brief, but the first agreement here is between the city and BNSF. So as many of you know, the Confluence Parkway South portion of the project is constructing two grade separations, one at McKittrick Street, the future McKittrick extension, and then one at the existing Miller Street crossing. And as part of that would close the existing crossing at Holly. So in effect, replacing two at-grade crossings with two grade separated for those improvements for safety for not just cars, but also bikes and peds getting across the tracks, access to the waterfront. So part of any project related with where we would be constructing a bridge in BNSF right-of-way, we would enter into an agreement with BNSF for them to design and review, provide comment on these structures. And with this particular project, we've talked about the design build nature to keep up with the tight grant timelines and the accelerated nature of the project. BNSF is retaining staff to primarily, this would be the only thing that they're focused on. So this is them committing to the project, or they would reach out to a third party to review and keep up with our submittal schedule. And so the agreement before you essentially does that to allow them to review our submittals and keep up with our timelines over the next roughly 2 years. So it's about $184,000 is the maximum. And again, this is, we have a similar agreement that is on the south end PED access bridges, but just with that one being a lot smaller in nature, that particular agreement is smaller in size. But this one really just reflects the nature of this project and these two grade crossings. And just to add also, this was included in our infra grant estimates. So this is eligible for reimbursement under the grant. So this was a planned cost. But with that, I'm happy to answer some questions.
Any questions for Jake?
I'm familiar with one project that had an at-grade crossing. And that at-grade crossing, paid for by others, not Burlington Northern Santa Fe, was designed by Burlington Northern Santa Fe and constructed by a contractor for Burlington Northern Santa Fe. Sounds like this is different, that this is part of our design build, and they're not involved in the design, and they don't care about the contractor.
They, partially correct, they do care, and so they want to be involved. They have very particular standards. Part of our early, as we were putting our RFP together for the project, we had met with BNSF staff, and they did consider constructing one or both of the crossings. And in our reviews, just looking at particularly the Miller Street crossing, the skew of it was beyond the capabilities of their staff, really their crane picking ability, the size of the girders that are expected. And so they chose to opt to not do that portion. Yeah.
Thank you.
As well as the, like I mentioned, the accelerated timeline that we're going to be looking to push this through design and construction to meet our infra grant requirements.
And have they assigned an individual person to that? Do we know who it is?
We don't have the name, but we basically, you know, as part of the agreement, it shows their the monthly salary, the cost, but it is a reimbursable agreement, so we would pay them upon receiving invoices and for reviews performed, not paying for it up front.
Okay. All right, any questions for Jake? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion for the City Council to authorize the City Administrator to execute the agreement between the City of Wenatchee and BNSF, providing for the reimbursement of costs incurred with design reviews of the Miller Street and McKittrick Street Railroad grade separations as part of the Confluence Parkway project.
Second. Motion by Councilmember Ojanasti and second by Councilmember Hornby to authorize the city administrator to execute the agreement between the City of Wenatchee and BNSF, providing for the reimbursement of costs incurred with design reviews of the Miller Street and McKittrick Street Railroad grade separations as part of the Confluence Parkway project. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the next item is an authorization to negotiate and execute an agreement.
Yes,
Got mixed emotions with this one, but I know we got to do it, so.
So this, the agreement or the action I'm requesting here is for authorization for the city administrator to negotiate and sign a contract pending WSDOT concurrence with our selected design builder on the project. So as I presented here not too long ago in a work session, we went through this summer a procurement process to find a design builder to partner with on Confluence Parkway. We had 5 interested teams. We shortlisted that down to 4 and went through a proposal phase and interviews. And through that process, ultimately selected Kramer Scarcella Brothers joint venture as the most qualified in partnership with KPFF Engineering. And so the action here is really to negotiate with them and enter into an initial contract for what we're calling the validation phase. So we will bring them on board. They'll catch up really quickly with what we've done up until this point, verify, start to advance a lot of questions, assigning risks, and then assessing those risks. How can we mitigate them, assign values to it, with the goal of working towards a target budget and scope. So we have the available funding that we have, and so they need to give us some assurances of what we can design and build for that amount. And ultimately, that's what we'll use to take to the feds to obligate the remaining funds next summer. And at that point, we would then finish the design and start construction. So this is just for the initial phase, which we're calling the validation phase.
All right, any questions for Jake? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I move for City Council authorize the city administrator to negotiate with Kramer Scarcella Brothers joint venture for design build services for Confluence Parkway project number 2201, and further authorize the city administrator to sign a contract pending Washington State Department of Transportation concurrence on behalf of the city.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Harold, second by Councilmember Kulas, to authorize the city administrator to negotiate with Kramer Scarcella Brothers joint venture for design build services for Confluence Parkway project number 2201, and further authorize the city administrator to sign a contract pending WashDOT concurrence on behalf of the city of Wenatchee. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you.
Nicole, thanks for sitting here.
Good evening, Nicole Brockwell, Project Engineer, Public Works. So the change order we have in front of you today for our McKittrick Street project is to address costs and delays associated with utility conflicts our contractor encountered on the project. These include utility conflicts respectively owned by Ziply, Charter, Cascade Natural Gas, and to a lesser extent, the City of Wenatchee and WashDOT. These utilities were either previously unidentified and they weren't shown in our contract plans, or we had an idea of their horizontal location, but no vertical location was known. As a result of these conflicts, our contractor experienced significant delays, inefficiencies, and in some cases extra work, as they had to navigate around these utilities as well as the respective utility companies that were out there to relocate. 2 of the respective utility companies are under franchise agreement with us. So the total cost of the change order is $128,474.53. And it also includes a request for an additional 24 working days to be added to the contract time. A few things I'd kind of like to note on top of that. So this cost was included in our proposed 2024 budget sheets for the project, so that's been captured there. And in terms of schedule, although this does add a significant amount of contract time, it's not the sole driver for our project schedule, so just an update for the council. This project was initially intended to be completed this year. Construction is now expected to be completed in late spring, early summer of '24. And the driver for that is not these delays, but procurement of our decorative signal poles and luminaire poles, which we've been given an estimated delivery date of May of '24. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding this change order and the project in general.
And I asked you this in the finance committee, but I'll say it in front for the rest of the council. So is there a way for us to pursue the Ziplys and the Charters of the world who are either on certain days and didn't show up and didn't abide by the franchise agreement in terms of timing? Will we attempt to go after them for some of these cost overruns?
Yes, and we're working through that. We've been in contact with City Attorney Steve Smith as well as the respective utility companies, hashing through what happened on site as well as events leading up to it. So we're working towards a resolution.
All well documented.
All right, any questions for Nicole? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I'll motion for City Council to amend the construction contract with J&K Earthworks and further authorize the city administrator to approve the construction change order number 04 for McKittrick, North Wenatchee Avenue to BNSF project pending WashDOT concurrence.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Ojanastati and second by Councilmember Cuevas to amend the construction contract with J&K Earthworks and further authorize the city administrator to approve the construction change order number 4 for the McKittrick North Wenatchee Avenue to BNSF project pending WashDOT concurrence. Any discussion? WashDOT's got to concur on a lot of stuff, don't they?
Specifically for this, it's because our DBE goals were impacted. Part of the cost is associated with traffic control, which is a DBE for the project, and it's an increase in funds, but because it was altered whatsoever, it has to get buy-off from headquarters, WashDOT headquarters.
Just to add, per the LACNIC or
Yes.
RWs, any agreement, federal agreements need WashDOT concurrence, that
Okay.
we are the administrator of.
Yes.
Got it.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Nicole. All right, so we have 2 action items regarding multifamily housing limited property tax exemption agreement. So I see Glenn is here and not Stephen. So the first one looks like is going to adopt an 8-year, and then we're going to look at maybe removing the exemption altogether in the next item.
Your Honor,
Give that to Glenn, yes?
while he's getting ready, could we do a 2-3 minute break?
Yeah. What time is it? It is 6:04. Just take a little 4-minute break. Yeah. Now we're gonna get going. Yeah.
Don't know what I'm gonna do yet.
Looks like we got 7 council members back here, so we'll go ahead and get started. So I think, I do have, Danielle, just sort of a quick, sort of legal question. Obviously, item H is regarding an 8-year exemption. Item I is gonna start removing the 8-year exemption to some degree, I think, if the council adopts it. But item I won't become law for 30 days, right?
That's correct.
So H would be fine, and if someone else applied in the next 30 days and we agreed to accept it, so this may not be the last one if someone else chose to apply again.
That is correct.
Okay,
And we do have one application in queue that we've recently been submitted,
Okay.
an additional one.
so it's entirely possible that there's one more coming.
It is very possible.
Okay, so let's deal with item H, and then we'll deal with item I, and as part of item I, I'll try to explain sort of how this weird property tax system works. Right?
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Glenn DeVries, Community Development Director. So before you, we have a multifamily tax exemption application. And before we get into the actual application, just talking a little bit about project eligibility. Fundamental decisions on whether there's a tax shift or should be or should not are made when the code is adopted. So that decision was already made. Once we then have the code in place, project eligibility is very straightforward and simple because a decision's been made that we want either multifamily housing to be submitted for and encourage it, or that we want affordable housing, and in this case, our code encourages both. So our project eligibility under our criteria is limited to, and it follows the statute, is it in our target area, 1? Is it the appropriate size? Is it providing permanent residential housing? Is the proposed completion date acceptable? And if it were affordable housing, does it meet that criteria? So our eligibility criteria, our criteria that staff reviews it by and then the city council reviews it by, is very straightforward and simple, and it follows state law. So fundamental decisions were made when we adopted the code as a city. So for this application, you have submitted by Tom Cash an application for an 8-year tax exemption. And this is for a fourplex located at 416 Kittitas Street in Wenatchee, and it is within the city of Wenatchee's designated target area. Based on that and a complete application, the project meets all of our eligibility criteria, and staff recommends approval of the application so that then staff would enter an agreement with the applicant, and they would have 3 years to complete the project unless a 2-year extension was requested. And staff would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
So Glenn, just to play devil's advocate, once this meets all the criteria and fits within what we've already voted on when this was established, I mean, you're bringing it to us now to make a decision, but we really don't have a decision because it fits all the criteria, and we're basically just agreeing that this fits the criteria for what we agreed to when
Correct.
we installed this.
Your review authority is based on the code in place, and the code is very limited on what we look at.
Thank you.
So with that, and the fact that this qualifies under our code for the 8-year tax exemption, sort of feel like, I don't know if you guys have any questions for Glenn. If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, motion for the City Council to approve Resolution 2023-27, authorizing execution of an 8-year multifamily housing limited property tax exemption agreement with Tom Cash.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Hornby, second by Councilmember Poyer to adopt Resolution 2023-27, authorizing the execution of an 8-year multifamily housing limited property tax exemption agreement with Tom Cash. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item I, Mr. DeVries, I'll let you go first. Walk us through what staff and the council have decided with respect to removing the 8-year exemption.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the intent of the code when it was adopted that we have in place today was to increase market rate housing, which it has, and then to also provide for the opportunity to have as a component a 12-year program that would have a minimum requirement for 20% affordable units. And that's in place today, and that provides that new construction would have at least 4 multifamily units, or it would be a rehabilitation of an existing structure into permanent housing, bringing them up to the building code, and that these would be for sale or for rent, and that has to be within the city's designated target area. And I have some existing slides that have been used for workshops that are available as a resource, but I'm going to skip ahead unless we have questions. So, sorry if I'm making folks dizzy. Just a second. Okay, staff direction. So after the workshops that we had with City Council, staff was provided some direction on drafting an ordinance. And this direction was that we would develop an 8-year exemption program with a minimum of 5% affordable housing units, that we would retain our existing 12-year program, which has a requirement for 20% affordable housing units. And then we would keep our current boundary as far as our target area where these applications could be submitted under this program. And we were further directed to provide this initial draft at the Public Service Committee meeting, and then also follow up with an ordinance for your consideration tonight. One of the things that we looked at that meeting, though, was how many units do you get for affordable units at different percentages? So one of the things we looked at was how many we get at 5%, 10%, and then we looked on it sequentially up. One of the things we found with the 5% minimum is that we weren't getting any affordable housing units out of an application until we at least got 10 housing units under the 5% provision. And then we wouldn't get a second one until we hit 30 units. So when the Public Service Public Service Community meeting occurred, the decision was that a 10% approach was more appropriate, because at that, we would receive, something's happening with my mouse here. That we would get at least 1 unit at 10, and then we would receive a second unit at 15, and then a third unit at 25. So there was a measurable benefit that was easier to track and show with a minimum requirement at 8 years for 10% units. And it was, the understanding was that this was a threshold where we could get benefit for affordable units, but it wasn't so burdensome that it might eliminate someone from wanting to do it. There was an incentive. So based on that, we have an ordinance before you tonight that provides for revisions to the 8-year exemption, requiring projects to include a minimum of 10 multifamily units. So we started at 10 units because at that point we're starting to get the benefit of having an affordable unit. And then also we provided a provision that on the 12-year exemption, that if you get approved for a 12-year exemption, you can't change that to an 8-year exemption. We provided a clarification on the rounding of fractions. So if you're at a 0.5, that means you have to round that up to include that as an affordable unit. And then additionally required that the applicant would pay the full cost of recording documents. Currently, we're only receiving a $50 fee for the cost of recording, which is insufficient. With that sums up the recommended changes to that ordinance before you tonight. And we have a suggested recommended motion for your consideration, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Glenn, with the rounding portion of it, it would only have to be 5 units at 10% to get a single affordable housing unit. Is that correct?
That is, let's go up here. That is
So
correct.
you have to be able to round up, right?
Right, so if you took a 0.5% or a half
Yeah.
a unit
So
and rounded it up,
10,
you could build 5 units and one of them would have to be unaffordable.
no, that would be a 10%. So you have to build 1 out of 10.
So you could, if 10% would start at 10 units.
Okay,
So if
yeah,
you were
right.
doing something less, you would be requiring a much higher ratio at 5 units then, but you would be rounding up. So what was discussed at the committee meeting was that individuals who want to do less than 10 could still apply under the 12-year program
Right.
and provide 20% affordable units, which is essentially similar to that. So it provides that option.
But the minimum of now of 10 means you gotta have 100 units, right? Or you can do 50 and apply 10 if you wanted to, but if you kept our percentages, you'd have to build a big unit, which is fine. Yeah.
But you could build a 10-plex and have one
Yes.
unit.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right, so I will do my best to explain sort of property tax, because this stuff is super confusing. I think when you look at the exemption that we gave 10 years ago, and you look at where our housing stock was at the time, the goal was, we hadn't had a multifamily project built in this city in 10 years. And obviously, the rates, our vacancy rates were under 0.5%, and so we allowed any fourplex or greater, if you built, we would allow you to not pay property taxes into the system based on the value of the building, not the land, for 8 years. And so Mr. Widener took advantage of that in a couple of different places. All the stuff in and around Public Works did. Now, as far as what happens to the city, we still collect the same amount of taxes we've ever collected, right? We tell the treasurer and the assessor that under state law, we can get, and we just did the finance committee looked at it today, so we're collecting about $5 million in property taxes. And we're allowed to take 1% more than that. So next year, we'll say $5,050,000. And if the assessed valuation throughout the city is $5 billion, and everybody pays their percentage, right? But if we arbitrarily took one of these guys that should be assessed at 10 million and only assessed them at 1 million, then they're paying less than their fair share, and we're paying slightly more because their assessed valuation was artificially brought down. And so that shift, according to the assessor's office, was about $20 per year per average household in the city, I think is what she said. Is that about right? You guys remember that?
I think so, yeah.
It was like 8 to 9 all the way up to 20 something.
Yeah, so we all pay a little bit more and the developer pays less until they get through the 8-year period. Mr. Widener, for instance, at Riverside 9, his property tax bill last year was $465,000. But we had to wait for him to get there, right? And then everybody else's drops. So property tax is confusing, it's complicated, but this has been a tax shift away from the developer to those of us that own homes to promote the building of multifamily housing, which is, I think, the reason we're here now is I think the council's decided they're done with the shift. We've accomplished what we wanted to accomplish, and we're ready to force everybody who does this to provide some form of subsidized housing. And so that's why we're here today, taking us a while to get here. But I think that's the council's prerogative at this point to do that. And so I will say this going forward, though, as we've seen our economy sort of struggle here a little bit. Interest rates are high. We're seeing some apartment developers saying, nah, we're going to step back. We've seen the Lineage folks say not until that's fully rented are we going to build the next group. Widener is going to build, I think, the 5/2, but some of this stuff is starting to change. Interest rates are high. So I think there's going to be a slowing, and at some point, it will go again. Don't know when, but it will start again. And you'll have to decide whether that start again is going to happen here, because we incentivize, or is that start again going to happen someplace else? Because developers are going to have options. And you guys just have to sort through that. I'll be sitting on a beach someplace. But just, I think, be aware of that as things sort of change. But for now, I think this is kind of the best spot for us to land in. And again, I think Danielle's got it right, 30 days from the date of publication. I'm sure we'll publicize publication on Monday or something, so 30 days after that, this program will lapse. If someone brings us an application prior to that, it would be one that the city would process. Council members, any questions, comments, thoughts? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I make a motion for the city council to adopt ordinance number 2023-17, adopting amendments to Wenatchee City Code, chapter 5.88.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Kulas, second by Councilmember Hornby, to adopt ordinance number 2023-17, adopting amendments to Wenatchee City Code, chapter 5.88.
And I would say, and I've said this before, that I remain, one of the issues that, when we had staff from the county assessor's office here quantifying what the shift was, I remain concerned that some of that shift is occurring on folks who are already in homes, but in that, you know, the lower income levels, and as their property taxes go up because of the shift, the effect that it has on them is one of my concerns.
Yep. All right, any other comments? All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Oh, that's good.
Thanks, Glenn. And finally, a contract with the Rescue Mission, which is also yours. You can't leave.
All right, so before you this evening, I have a contract for the Wenatchee Rescue Mission for the amount of $254,800. This is for additional staffing. The Columbia River Homeless Housing Task Force has reviewed feedback, monitoring feedback, and public feedback, community feedback, feedback from agencies on program implementation and staffing levels. There are a significant number of, we're about to add 44 units, which can be 88 additional individuals there. And we also have had time to evaluate some volunteer staffing that occurs at the rescue mission. And the consensus was from the task force, given that we can really improve program implementation if we do three things. One, we add an on-site manager. It's a desk manager working on case management, entry of folks into the system, coordination with wraparound service providers as they enter the facility, and a better communication with folks that are interacting with the program. And everyone thought that was really important for clear communication and partnerships going forward. Additionally was site security, starting at 3 p.m. and going into 7 a.m. the next day, having professional security at the facility, especially with the additional potential of 88 more individuals at the site. Low barrier facilities require a high level of staffing to be successful, to be safe. And also that staffing would be not just looking on site, they'd be looking at the perimeter of the facility as well, and how that interacts with the neighborhood. And lastly, one of the things that we've learned from other pallet shelter communities, those individual units that are about to be placed on site, is that there's a high degree of maintenance of custodial care that needs to be done and cleaning for those facilities to be successful on site for health and safety, and that the existing custodial staff was just not sufficient for those additional 44 units. And so adding a custodian was recommended. So the proposal for you is for the amount that I stated. I wanted to point out that I did provide there is a typo. This time period begins in November 1st of this year and extends through December 31st of 24, not 23. My apologies. I would stand for any questions you might have on this. Just as far as the fiscal impact, though, funding has been reviewed along with the upcoming budget for next year, and is sufficient to accommodate this. It wouldn't have an impact on the general fund. It is, funding would be provided through the 1070 sales and use tax collected for the cities of Wenatchee and East Wenatchee for the homeless program. And happy to answer any questions you might have.
I don't have a question. I kind of have a comment, a thought. First, I want to applaud you and your team for tackling this. Also, Linda and Jose for putting all the effort into dealing with the homeless. This is not we didn't cause these decisions of dealing with safe parks, homeless shelters, low barriers. That has been forced on us, and we're doing the best that I think we can. We listen. It's brought our community together in many aspects of reorganizing how we tackle this. There's no great, perfect answer for this. And I think we're listening, I think we're adapting, and we're changing. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Travis, I want to say thank you for saying that because it's so true. And Glenn and his staff have worked so hard to put this together. We are light years ahead of where we were when we started this project. And I think we're taking the right steps. There's no clear answer, but I think we're there. Part of this happened because of a meeting that myself and Glenn and Chief Crown had with a local business person. And
The gal that came here.
yeah, and she also came here and spoke to us, and it's a critical problem. I think this is going to solve a lot of problems and help make the whole Wenatchee Rescue Mission a lot more secure. So I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think, I sort of, asked Chief the question a little while ago about, the folks that we arrest in the jail, and, you think about the Blake decision, you think about the Boise decision, you think about the Seattle court case, right? And we all raise a hand, right? And we take an oath of office, and the oath of office is to abide by the laws of the state of Washington, the United States, and the city of Wenatchee. And we just can't go say, well, we're just gonna violate that law because we wanna arrest this person, or, we can't do that. Right? So we have to be very careful when we do that, because we take that oath so seriously. And so it's these types of things, right? It's more security, it's the show, I mean, all of that stuff, but it's not as simple as, I'll just go snap your fingers and fix that, right? The court system makes it difficult for us, and so I think we are, Linda and Travis, thank you. I think we are doing the best that we can, and here's another step to try to help do what we can while we're abiding by the laws of the state of Washington, and so I agree with you, Travis.
Ignoring a problem does not solve or correct the problem. When your tire's going flop, flop, flop down the road, it's still flat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ignoring it and ignoring the procedures to cure it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right, with that, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I move for City Council to authorize the city administrator to sign a contract amendment with the Wenatchee Rescue Mission, authorizing the funding for on-site security for Safe Park 1, the temporary low barrier shelter unit complex and low barrier shelter, a custodian to serve the low barrier shelter and shelter unit complex, and a case manager desk position coordinating with agencies and the public, providing professional communication, engaging with and entering new households into the system, and coordinated entry.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Harold, second by Councilmember Cuevas, to authorize the city administrator to sign a contract amendment with Wenatchee Rescue Mission, authorizing the funding for on-site security for Safe Park 1, a temporary low barrier shelter unit complex and low barrier shelter, a custodian to serve the low barrier shelter and the shelter unit complex, and a case manager desk position coordinating with agencies and the public, providing professional communication, engaging with and entering new households into the system, and coordinated entry. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Jessica, you need an award, young lady.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Jessica Shaw, Deputy Public Works Director, Utilities. And we'll wrap up tonight with something I hope will be pretty quick. So we have a use agreement with Chelan County PUD for our Wenatchee Valley Regional Decamp Facility. So as you may recall, we're partners with Chelan County, and actually in the very beginning, we had many stakeholders, and the PUD was one of them. They provided letters of supports, which helped with funding. We got grant funding that bought the property, built this decant facility. This helps us meet our stormwater requirements under our municipal stormwater permits. And so the agreement you have tonight is for the Chelan PUD to use this facility. They do have the same permit requirements the city does to maintain stormwater systems in the riverfront parks. And they also have some hydro excavation from their utility activities that they would be bringing to the facility. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any about the agreement.
Slow to get our partners here, but we're getting them here.
The facility was in 2015. This is the last partner that was a stakeholder back in 2010. So I think we've made it. They're all on board. So, and this is just for 1 year. The PUD just wanted to try out. I said, that's fine. We could accommodate you. The facility was designed for them as a potential partner, as well as WashDOT, the Douglas County, East Wenatchee, Chelan County. It was all anticipated to be partners in the facility, so.
It's great to work together.
Is the facility keeping up with the loads?
It is, yeah, it's actually functioning very well. We have added a temporary 6-month position in the last year, which has been very helpful, and we are working to recover all of our costs and also help to cover some of the ongoing maintenance and improvements to the facility with the fees that are paid by these users.
Excellent, thanks.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm gonna make a motion for the city council to approve the Wenatchee Valley Regional Decant Facility Use Agreement with Public Utilities District Number 1 of Chelan County and authorize the mayor's signature.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Poyer, second by Councilmember Harold, to approve the Wenatchee Valley Regional Decant Facility Use Agreement with the Public Utility District Number 1 of Chelan County and authorize the mayor's signature. Any discussion?
Just one, and I'm gonna make a parallel with this item and the item with emergency management. You'll note that the fee structure in this is $2,400 annual fee plus essentially a per capita. The emergency management is strictly a per capita, and that ignores the fact that there is this base fixed cost for that function. And I would, for those of you that might be negotiating the agreement next year, I'd encourage you to consider fixing a base plus per capita in that emergency management contract, so all the communities are paying a portion of that fixed cost, say like $2,500 plus the per capita. So it lowers the per capita, but it sets a base.
Yeah, sort of a.
Just saying.
You gotta pay to play a little
Yes.
bit. Yeah. All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Jessica, thanks for being here today. Mayor's report, I will go quick. I'm not even sure, lots going on. I was at the YMCA event. I know some of you were there a week ago last Thursday. I did my annual speech at the, what's the academy on Fish Street? What's the high school on Fish Street there? Fifth and Western. Cascade Christian Academy, yeah. I was at one of their government classes, so that was great. This week, we did meet with Senator Cantwell's Eastern Washington rep, Richard Evans. It'll be the last time I meet with him, so we gave him some ideas on what we're looking for from the federal government. So it'll be up to the next mayor and the city administrator to keep those communications, keep those going. I think that's really about all. I'll be at the Apple Blossom Auction this weekend, and I am getting an award from the Bendito family Sunday afternoon at Met Howe Park, so I'll be going there Sunday afternoon. Laura, anything to add from our side?
Yeah, a couple items. Just a reminder of the remaining meetings that we have left, since they're all sort of special meetings. They were just for holidays. So we have a meeting on November 9th, the 16th, and then December 7th. And then we also have a special swearing-in meeting on the 28th. That's a reminder also to start looking at your committee assignments. We will discuss those at the December 7th meeting, but with especially Councilmember Kulas's retirement, that he was covering a lot of the different agencies and organizations, start to take a look at that so we can have that discussion on the 7th. We currently have 2 vacancies on the Code Enforcement and Historic Board, so if you have any friends, family members, neighbors who might be interested in those, please reach out. We can provide more information on those, but would love 2 new candidates for those boards. Last two items is we are still looking for nominations for the Uplift Awards. So those are the Civil Rights and Social Justice Awards. Those are due by November 10th, and we are sneaking into November here very quickly. And lastly, our second Reimagine workshop is next week on the 1st at the local Televent Center at Pybus. And that's it.
Yeah, so my thought for council assignments was that we could maybe talk about it on the 9th. We'll know who the new council member will be and who mayor will be at that time. And then on the meeting of the 28th, just before we do a swearing in, we will adopt a resolution to get all those done so that on January 1st of 2024, everyone's in their assignments, because I don't think they meet till the 12th or 14th, and there'll be meetings ahead of that. So we'll meet with whoever the new mayor is. We'll meet with whoever the new council member is and have those discussions ahead of that. But be thinking in terms of Mark's really heavy lifting in terms of museum and link and a lot of the stuff he's been on is going to have to get spread amongst some of you in some way or another. Council members, anything to add?
I got two quick things. The WDA is excited that the parking enforcement is still working, so thank you. And then secondly, we are all invited to November 14th at 5 p.m. to hang out with all the WDA and socialize. So put that on your calendars.
Yep,
5 p.m.
It's on my calendar.
Did I get that already?
And Laura took another one from me, so.
Keith?
I just wanted to make a comment about the intersection of Maple Avenue again. With McKittrick being closed, it's kind of exacerbated the problem there. And we continue to see a lot of people going through neighborhoods instead of the normal routes. And my concern is as the build out happens at the top of Maple Street, that's going to get far worse. So I'm hoping that sooner than later we can start making some plans to do some improvements through that area.
Anybody else?
I do.
Yeah.
I have multiple things. On Tuesday, I attended a forum at the college to discuss about the youth violation prevention, the one we attended, and it's going to continue on. And we're thinking to make a committee. And I asked the rest of the council members, if you ever get an approach from a cafe staff, please assist them in the best way we can so we can help this youth prevention go have access and be live. And last night, I went to the Chelan Douglas Homeless Task Force meeting. We did interviews for live experience representatives who were homeless to see if they can help us in our committee to go forth.
Yeah.
And we adjusted the bylaws and strategic planning. A lot to do in there. If you need more information, I have the paperwork so you can see it.
Anybody else? Linda?
I do. We had our follow-up meeting last week on Thursday for Masala. And the delegation is coming for Apple Blossom next year. So they'll be here during Apple Blossom. And then also our trip for next year is September 27th, I think, through October 3rd. So we are definitely moving to the fall, which will be nicer for whoever goes. It won't be quite so hot.
Yeah. Anybody else? All right, so we will see you all again on Thursday, November 9th at 5:15 p.m. We'll let you know if for some reason we'll have executive session ahead of that, consistent with today's, but we'll let you know in advance of that. With that, we're adjourned.